Good morning, everyone. Good morning. We thank you so much for coming today to discuss this important topic, domestic violence. We welcome you this morning. We bring greetings from our president, Dr. Gail Gibson, our area-wide dean, Keith Kirkland of Community and Continuing Education. And we bring greetings from the Wise Women Center. It is our pleasure to bring this presentation to you because this is vital information that you need to know. Our director, Susan McDonald, should be in the house, and wave your hand in the back. And just greetings from our staff that are in the back. Wave your hand, Elena and Elizabeth Ramirez, and Teskeen is out today. We're a small group. I'm Denise Brooks, by the way. We're a very small group, but we do great work. It doesn't take a lot of people to do great work. And we work to do the important work that helps students succeed. We may not serve you in the classroom, but we are always available to you to be a support system to help you through those things that stand in your way of success. And we have been doing that work for a long time, and that's why we today chose to come to you and bring you this important information on domestic violence. October is Domestic Violence Month, and it is just our pleasure to be able to bring to you a young woman whose name is Asia D. Smith. She's young in comparison to me. But what I admire most about this young woman, I'm going to get to the official bio, but I have to say what I need to say on my own is that I've watched her over the past 8 years or so. And as many of you, she was just a young woman that had some issues and had a passion. But she also, she had a thirst for learning, but she also had an entrepreneurial spirit. I know that many of you, even though you're in school and you're trying to do certain things, there are some of you out there that just want to be entrepreneurs and create your own thing. Is there anybody out there that has that passion? Would you give me 2 hands? I could understand that. That wants to do your own thing. So what I really admire about her is that she continued with her learning, she dealt with her own issues, but she found the courage to take the risk to bring out that entrepreneurial spirit and to do something that didn't just make a profit for her, but that helped to empower lives of others, people that she didn't even know, and to deal with what is not considered a necessarily pleasant topic, but it is a real topic, and it is a very prevalent topic, and you know, is an unwelcome resident in a lot of our homes. And we want to learn how to kick that squatter out. So today, Ms. Smith is going to come and share some information with you. I want you to have a piece of paper and a pen or pencil. So while she's speaking, take the time to jot down any question or any concern that you might have, because the time will come where you can ask that question. Remember, there is no stupid question. All questions are relevant, and most often the question that you have, and you're running around, should I say that, should I say that, should I say that? Trust me, there's about 3 or 4 other people sitting in this room that are fearful of asking that important question. So take the time to write that down so that when that time comes, you can just hit it and we can address it. Ms. Asia D. Smith is founder and CEO of Purple Rain Social Services. She quotes, "That night, he tried to kill me. nothing else for me to do but die. And this is what she said that night. It was the night she decided to end a 4-year romance that had devolved into an emotionally, physically, and sexually abusive relationship. 9 years later, Smith is now the founder of Purple Rain, an outreach organization for battered women. She is also one of the roughly 33% of African American women who will experience dating or domestic violence, the type of violence that led to the death of Cassandra Perkins at the hands of her boyfriend, NFL player Jovan Belcher, who in turn committed suicide. Did anybody remember that? After escaping a violent and abusive relationship, Asia knew she was going to be more than just a survivor. She wanted to help other men and women who suffered the same abuse. With that, she took the money she had saved to attend law school and started the nonprofit foundation Purple Rain Social Services. RAIN is an acronym for R, restoration, E, empowerment, I, integrity, G, grace, and N, nobility. Purple Rain gives resources and support to help victims get out of their abusive relationships safely. As Asia's motto states, she helps men and women turn tragedy into triumph. First Lady Mary Pat Christie, wife of Governor Christie, named Asia D. Smith her 19th New Jersey hero for her commitment to make a difference in the lives of domestic abuse survivors. Then on this program, she also gives her website. Join me in welcoming this morning, Miss Asia D. Smith.
Okay, I want us to have more of an intimate conversation. Is that okay?
Yes.
Okay, I would really like for all of us to take this opportunity to just kind of free our minds a little bit, because I'm pretty sure everybody has obviously heard about domestic violence, and we all have our own beliefs and notions about it as well. So for just a little while, I want us to just kind of remove those misconceptions and all those thoughts and ideas and just be open to the information. And also have your heart open, because there may be some things that might resonate with you within your own lives and relationships. So as I was just announced, my name is Asia Smith, and I'm the founder of an organization called Purple Rain. Now I know I'm a little bit older than some of you students, but there's got to be a few of you in here that know exactly what that name means, right? I see you dancing. So when you hear the name Purple Rain, what comes to your mind? Yes, okay, great. And so, well, that's a wonderful thing. How many of you saw the movie Purple Rain, actually? So back in the 80s, Prince was even innovative, even back then, because he tackled the issue of domestic violence. He also showed in the movie exactly what happens when individuals can grow up in an abusive household and how that cycle of violence can continue. So also, as I was introduced by Ms. Brooks, yes, I like to call myself an overcomer of domestic violence. I don't like to call myself a survivor, because surviving does a lot more than that. But the reality is, a lot of times, people don't even know that they're in an abusive relationship. Do you think that's possible? It's absolutely very possible, because the dynamics of abuse, the dynamics of violence, and the way relationships evolve, you can get swept up without even realizing it. So here's a quote that I like, and it's by Susan B. Anthony, and it says, "The fact is, women are in chains, and their servitude is all the more debasing because they do not realize it." Now, I want to just give a disclaimer, especially to all the men in the room. I thank you all for coming. And domestic violence is a global issue, not a gender issue. We do not vilify, demonize, or in any way, shape, or form have any biases towards men. So I just want all the men in the room to understand that. That quote, though, is just simply something that helps me to understand what happened when I found myself in that situation. And also to give kind of a great outlook on what it's like when people say things like, well, how didn't she know? Why didn't she know? So we'll get to all all of those things in just a second. So now, we're going to talk today about what it is, what domestic violence actually is, and you're going to have to ask yourself, am I a victim? Have I ever been victimized? You can also then ask yourself, based on certain behaviors, am I abusive? Now, yes, the relationship may not be nearly as egregious as the one that I experienced, and we'll talk a little bit more about that. But we really have to just take a step back and ask ourselves exactly what type of a relationship I'm in. And then also, what does love have to do with it? And I know, of course, yes, everybody thinks about the movie and the song once again. However, we do have to understand what love is, because when we do, we realize it has absolutely nothing to do with an abusive relationship. So now, there's a quote by Albert Einstein. The question that often drives me crazy, am I or are the others? Excuse me, the question that sometimes drives me hazy, am I or are the others crazy? Now, how many times have we been in relationships and we have people in our family, and one minute things are going great with this person, and the next thing you're like, who are you? And what have you done with the person that I was just talking to? Why are you so sensitive? Why are you so angry? What is going on now? And so sometimes we find ourselves maybe getting into another relationship that might have similar patterns. And so we have to step back and say, okay, is it them or is it me? Is it something that I'm not seeing or something that I'm not aware of, that I just keep seeming to kind of find myself around this type of person? So we really, once again, have to always do that examination of ourselves. So now, we have to know exactly what domestic violence is. So contrary to what a lot of people may think, domestic violence is the willful intimidation, physical assault, battery, sexual assault, emotional, psychological, verbal, and or other abusive behavior perpetrated by an intimate partner, family member, caregiver, ex-partner, or household member. Abuse doesn't care where you're from. So in other words, it's not like most people. It doesn't discriminate. They could care less about the community you're from, how much money you have, the level of education you have, who you know, your social status, etc. Because why? That's because abuse is not even about the victim. Never is. So now, domestic violence, also known as intimate partner violence, occur in a pattern, or what is frequently referred to as a cycle of violence. One minute things are okay, then there's a lot of tension, a calm before the storm, and then an explosion. So I'm going to pause right there for a moment. Have any of you ever seen what's called the cycle of violence? It's like a wheel. Has any of you seen it? And there's actually going to be some handouts that you'll be receiving in a few minutes that has a copy of the wheel on there. And so most of the time, people often wonder, how can a person get into an abusive relationship? How does it happen? Because you might think that it happens every day. This person must be getting abused every day. It happens all the time. But in actuality, it doesn't. It can be very sporadic. It can happen every 3 months. It can happen once a year. Physical violence. However, the emotional abuse, the psychological abuse, and the verbal abuse is what people experience most often in abusive relationships. So now it is also the insidious and intentional breaking down of another person from the inside out. So when we often ask, like, how does a person end up becoming a victim of domestic violence? Well, it's actually quite simple, because we're not expecting for it to happen. It begins with just name calling. It begins with jealousy. And so sometimes when we get into relationships with people, we say, oh my God, they call me all the time. And you're excited in the beginning because you think that this person is really interested in you. It's kind of flattering. You think that they care, and they want to be concerned about your safety and your well-being. And for me, I thought, like, oh, this person must really be concerned, because it was always, I don't want you to go to these places because there's a lot of crazy people out there. And so I began to think, like, this is what relationships are all about. But what starts off as what seems to be flattering is actually insecurities. And what it's going to turn into, ultimately, it'll translate into criticisms. You know, first you couldn't go out because you're so beautiful and you're so smart and you're so wonderful, and they're afraid. But then it becomes, who do you think you are? Or why can't you do this? Or why didn't you do that? Or how come? And who said? And then, of course, now it starts to escalate. It really does. And so most people want to know, how, in fact, does it look? I say domestic violence happens 3 ways: intimidation, intimidation, manipulation, and domination. So first of all, somebody will manipulate you. They're this wonderful person. Wonderful, because of course no one says, guess what? In 3 months, I'm going to turn into this psychopath. I'm going to strangle you, steal from you, humiliate you. I'm going to waste your time and try to destroy you. No one says that. So the manipulation comes in. You think that this person is wonderful. They're everything that you want. And in fact, sometimes we tell people what we want them to be. You know, when you first meet someone, they ask you, what do you like? What type of person do you like? What type of relationships? What are you looking for? And you know, we're pretty gung-ho about it. Well, I want someone who is kind, who loves dogs, who's goal-oriented. Check, 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 check. And guess what? You got it all right here, right? And wrong. This is just what I'm going to be to get you to where I need to get you. And there's a quote by Sir Walter Scott that says, oh, what a tangled web we weave, when first we practice to deceive. And that's the way it happens. So now, of course, the intimidation comes. Now I'm just going to scare you. Obviously, you realize that this person that you are in a relationship with is not the person that you originally signed up for, because trust me, I never said, eeny, meeny, miny, beat me. I never said that. In fact, I used to think that I always prided myself on being very selective. I am spontaneous, but not an impulsive person. I want to know. You ask all those right questions. And unfortunately, when I did find out that this person was a psychopath, now you're not going anywhere. And last but certainly not least comes the domination. And that's where things like strangulation, rape, and possibly death comes in. So, it can happen to anyone. So let's talk about some myths here. When people talk about, you know, especially abused women, what are some of the things that are often said that we hear? Please. It's her fault. It's her fault, right? She wants it, right? What about the other big one? Huh? Stupid. Who said stupid? Okay, great. And what's the other big one?
She chooses to stay.
Why'd you make me hit you?
She chooses to stay.
She chooses to stay. She provoked it. And the other one is that there's...
I just love you so much.
The other one is that abused women are looked at as weak, right? You know, because no way, I could never be a victim because I'm too, you know, that's what you often hear from people. Oh, my mouth is too big. Oh, yeah? Well, guess what? That mouth is what's going to be the main reason why this person is going to manipulate their abuse. See what you made me do because of what you said or didn't say. And so the reality is 1 in 4 women will become a victim of domestic violence. So no one can say that it could never happen to me. Secondly, when people say things like abused women are weak, I often laugh because the reality is I wasn't assaulted by a 3-foot elf who makes cookies in a tree. I was assaulted by a 220-pound psychopath. And so as tough as we may think that we are, there's no way you're going to be able to fight off somebody, especially with the, you know, how many people have heard of the bat theory? Get the baseball bat, or the other one. I don't want to say it, I want you guys to say it. It's okay. The grits, there you go. That inevitable pot of grits that always seems to be on the stove. Everybody thinks that all you got to do is just get some grits and just toss it on a person, and that's going to stop the abuse. When the reality is domestic violence does not happen like that. It's very easy to say what you would do, how you would do it, and where you would go, and all these things if you have all the elements. But the fact is the batterer is not, he knows you, they know you. They're not going to attack you when you're home with your pot of grits. No. It's going to be when you're walking out of a store, when you got bags in your hands, when you're coming out of work, when it's raining outside, and you're just trying to hurry up and get to your car, when you never see it coming. That's how the abuse happens. So now, when people say things like, how could she or he not know that this person is abusive? You hear that, right? It's stupid. You could never. How could you not know? The same reason why you don't know. Batterers are master manipulators. They fool everyone. And if you think about it, I mean, I saw it firsthand. The police would come, This guy was a model citizen. I'm like, wait a minute. This was not the person who was just standing here in my face 2 seconds ago before those red and blue lights came. So now, or oftentimes when we watch something on television and we see that an individual turns out to be a serial killer or a serial rapist, what do people from their communities or their workplaces often say? This is such a good person. We never saw it. How did this happen? Because once again, batteries fool everyone. And the gentleman there that said something, he said something about they must like it. Did somebody say that earlier today? Yes. Well, guess what? No one asked for likes to be abused or assaulted. And then the biggest one is, why doesn't she just leave? That's what we often hear. But the reality is 75% of the homicides are committed after a woman tries to leave. So at the end of the day, abuse is driven by toxic shame and rage engraved in the brain of the batterer. Has nothing to do with the victim, people. It could be the offspring of childhood conditioning, learned behavior, or irrational thoughts, beliefs, or values. The fact is, no one can make, cause, or force someone to be abusive. Abusers use power and control to humiliate the victims, assassinate their spirits, strip their identity, and exert complete control over them. Sadly, victims never see it coming. And before you know it, this is what you end up looking like. Before you know it, you start out standing tall and pretty and smart and all these wonderful things, and next thing you know, the only thing left for you to do is God. So now, if I am not good to myself, how can I expect anyone else to be good to me? So what that means is that we have to understand and learn that all batterers don't look like this, you guys. I'm sorry. And they really don't. Does anybody know who this is? Absolutely. And what is he known for?
Help people. Help this youngster.
But he was a master manipulator. Remember, he was able to manipulate all these individuals to go out and kill for him and to do all these things. Grown adult people, able to manipulate them. All batterers don't look like that. But they're also extremely intelligent. Does anyone know who this is? Absolutely. Absolutely. And does anybody remember what he's known for? But also, what made him, even more dynamic is he was brilliant. He was absolutely brilliant. In fact, he was so convincing that he was not the serial killer and rapist that the state of Washington actually, his department, they started a defense fund for him because he worked for the state. A defense fund for him because they were all just so convinced that everybody was completely wrong about who this guy was. Broke out of prison twice, the whole 9 yards. And then last but certainly not least, they are never what they seem to be. And everybody, I'm sure, knows who this is.
Anthony Malvo and something Lee.
The DC sniper. Yes, Lee William Malvo and John Muhammad. And a few weeks ago, I had the pleasure of working with Mildred Muhammad, the estranged ex-wife. And so one thing that we always knew about this case, and it never was publicized that way in the media, but this was a domestic violence case from the very beginning. And his intent the entire time was to kill her. But in order to do so without making it look like it was her, he decided that other people needed to be a casualty of his war. So you see, an individual who has their minds made up on this or that is something that they choose. And how many people not only lost their lives as a result of this guy, but it crippled, and for me, it was actually startling, all the way in New Jersey. Because it's like people were walking out of the store, kids going into school. There was no one that was not without being, in his mind, a way for him to get custody of his children and to kill her. But what she said was that the reason why the FBI never wanted to push this as a domestic violence case because they knew that he would get more time in prison for everything else he did, and they never really even paid attention to the domestic violence piece. And that's the same thing that happened even with my situation. Most people often ask, well, what did you do with it? How did you manage to get away? Well, it actually wasn't until the FBI, yes, that's right, the Federal Bureau of Investigation, came to see me to inform me that the person that I was with is a psychopath. And they said, well, did you not know who you were with? I said, well, I do now. Where were you 5 years ago? That would have been great information to know. But unfortunately, one thing that they asked me, and they said, well, how come you never reported some of the incidences? You have a record of everything. We believe everything that you say because this person was following you, tapping your phone, and doing all these things. So they knew that everything that I was saying was true and accurate. But when they asked me, why didn't I report it? And I said, well, because to you guys, I would be a case file. To me, I would be a closed casket. By the time you read my file and decided that this was criminal enough, I'd already be dead. And so I needed to do what was best for me in that situation. And anybody that deals with a batterer, everybody can say what you would and wouldn't do, or what you should and shouldn't do, but only a victim knows the true extent of their batterer. And that is what they have to use. And so even when people say things like abused women are weak, and as I mentioned before, I wasn't assaulted by an elf that eats cookies in a tree, but literally a 200-some-pound psychopath. And I'm actually a lot smaller than what I look like up here. And even if I weren't, I'm not designed or built to be able to defend myself from that type of assault. And again, it wasn't like, okay, Asia, at 3 o'clock this afternoon, when you get in the house, guess what? I'm going to be waiting on the other side of the door. The door that you think is locked, the door that you think that you have your alarm system on, all of those things, and I'm going to be waiting for you. Or guess what, Asia, when you come out of your job tomorrow, I'm just going to be outside waiting for you. Or here's a big one. So this person that I was with, he didn't stop at torturing me and making my life extremely miserable, even after I got away. Got away. So one day, he sent a message to me and he said, on your way to work tomorrow, make sure you look, I left a present for you. Like, oh brother, what is he talking about? So I used to have to drive up the Parkway North, and at that time, there was the big toll booth that you have to pay when you're going into the Parkway. And so this particular area had a construction site, and they had these trailers. You know how when you guys ever on the highway, you see there's construction, and they have the trailers for the workers? Well, apparently, he saw one that stood out, was nice and clean and white, and decided to spray paint my name all over the trailer. So every day that I would go through the Parkway, Monday through Friday, and it wasn't like I could ignore it, because I mean, it's literally at the toll booth. And so even with Easy Pass, it was just like, okay, I'm not even gonna look. But I knew that it was there. And that was just to say that no matter where you go, no matter what you think that you can do, I control you, I own you, and I'm not gonna stop, because now you defied me. You left. Remember, abused women, don't they leave? We do. We try, but it's not as easy as it seems. So now, let's look at our own lives and our own relationships, everyone. And Ms. Brooks, would you like to come on down? We can start maybe doing more of a different type of conversation, where we can talk about, just things about healthy relationships and some of the stuff that may happen. And so if anybody wants to kind of jump in as we're talking about some of these examples that happens in relationships, please feel free to do so. So now, ask yourself, am I with someone who call or text me constantly to find out where I am, who I'm with, and what I'm doing? Does anybody know what that feels like? I mean, or, excuse me, you know a friend that experienced that, right? Anybody have a friend of a friend? Okay, good. Okay, so that's what we'll do. Maybe there's someone who decided to spread vicious gossip or lies about you. And that's what I like to call muddying the well. Because what happens is people will try to assassinate your character beforehand. So this way, when you do try to talk about maybe the things that you've experienced and try to get the help that you need, people are going to look at you like you're the one who's the source of the problem. You're the one who should have better, should not have done certain things. And so you're like, wait a minute, that's not true. It's kind of like that whole divide and conquer type of thing. Or then, how about you with somebody who just tells you what to wear or what not to wear? Anybody know about that? Or some of your friends may have experienced that before? You know, what used to be really cute on you, your glasses, your hair, your this, your that, guess what? Those are the very things now that you won't be able to wear anymore or do. And it's really interesting because even when we talk about things like, you know, women in terms of wearing your hair a certain way. So I was instructed on several occasions that I should wear my hair a certain way. And then when I didn't comply, I remember going to the hair salon one week. So the lady that does my hair, she said, "Oh my gosh, somebody's cutting your hair." And I was like, "What are you talking about?" So she showed me in the middle of my hair, a whole lot of hair was cut out. So I was like, "Well, you're the only person that did my hair." She's like, "Well, it's not me." I said, "Well, I don't know what happened." Next week I come back, "Mommy, someone is cutting your hair." Another plug of hair out. And I was like, "What in the world is going on?" Well, apparently, while I would be asleep, this person decided, I'm just going to just touch, snip, snip, snip. And you won't know because, you know, of course, I don't know until I go to the salon the next week. And so finally, I was like, okay, I think I better start putting a bun in my hair, or else I'm probably going to be completely bald. And so that was kind of like, I told you. And if you don't listen, this is what's going to happen. So now, what about someone that has to be with you all the time? Oh my goodness, I even hear people now. I'm not talking about young people. I have friends who are in relationships with someone who does not feel comfortable if this person is out of their eyesight. They have to be with this person all the time in order for them to know that they're not cheating. They're not seeing anybody else. Well, what happens to me just saying that I'm not seeing somebody else? What happens to that not being good enough? And that's usually how it goes. You want to jump in?
No, I just.
I'm gonna
I don't
turn
know,
it
this
on,
isn't
wait.
on. Let me
Yeah.
stop. I just wanted to say, there is really no shame in being real. Because, I mean, I think I was the only one that raised their hand about what you wear. My husband lost his mind when I wore red. I mean, we literally would have to turn around and go back home. But you see, I got on red today because I'm free. So what I'm saying to you, ladies and men, because I've also had batterers. I've had women that went to jail for beating up their husbands. So what I'm saying is, in this conversation, and just in life in general, there really isn't no shame in being honest, because it doesn't mean that you're a weak woman. It means that you were in a position where you didn't know how to get it done, and you needed help, and you might have felt not so strong, and most often women love their batteries. They really do. And so it takes education and just the knowledge and support and know-how to be able to change. So don't be ashamed about raising your hand. Okay.
Okay. And just to kind of add to Ms. Brooks' point about men, over 400,000 men actually report being victims of domestic violence. But sadly, men deal with the same thing that women deal with. But even when it comes to men, because I see a lot of men, ironically, as our allies, but also as victims. And there's a gentleman that, you know, will call me every week. And he was a great person. He wanted to be a wonderful father and a great husband. But I had to tell him, I said, "Sir, you are being emasculated." And what that means is that you are not being respected because the wife began spitting in his face. Yes. And then they had a child together, and so the child began hitting the father and doing all this, and they found it funny because this is what this little girl was taught. And so he just kept saying, "Miss Asia, I just don't want, you know, I don't want to be that guy who leaves my family." And I was like, "You know, sir, you're doing a disservice to yourself and to your family by staying there. And I'm afraid that you're going to get frustrated one day. You're going to push this person off of you, and what if she slips and breaks her neck, falls, hits her head? And guess who? The only person that you contacted about your domestic violence is me, because he didn't want to go to the cops because he was a man, and they would laugh at him and ridicule him." So we want to just say that I commend you for saying that you would leave and not hit her back, because that's the great answer. But also, we have to hold people accountable for their actions. Because if you hit me, I'm calling the police. Man, woman, whatever the case may be. It's not about gender, it's about understanding love is patient, love is kind, love is not jealous, proud, boastful, rude. If you take those little steps as your blueprint, that's all you really need to know. And then, of course, understanding what the different types of abuse is, emotional, verbal, psychological, and it becomes physical. But if you start to see some things, the one thing that we have to start doing as people is trusting our gut. No matter how attractive or fine or whatever the person may be, when you see certain types of behaviors, that's when it's time to say, whoa, 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 let me take a step back. Because as you mentioned, you know, the person will hit this person, then create a fight, then call the cops, and before you know it, everybody's arrested. So if you feel like this is someone that you are dealing with that has the propensity to do that, it's always best to kind of leave out of the situation. And the one thing that really bothers me is when you often hear cases and people will say things like, I knew something like that was going to happen. I saw it, I heard it, and it's like, and you didn't do anything? I'm not saying that you have to step out and be, you know, a superhero, because we're not saying for anybody to intervene. However, if you see something that's not right with the person, go to them and say, I love you, I care about you, and it seems like something isn't right with this relationship. You don't have to tell me, but here's some information. Maybe you want to just look into something. Because once we start paying attention to certain patterns and all kinds of little things, it's like, wait a minute, check. And when I thought about it, after I went back and you know, came out of what I went through, I realized that this person had been abusive the entire time. He just never laid a hand on me. And because we think that domestic violence is physical, by the time it gets to the physical part, oh, it's already too late. It's already too late. And so we have to just start to look at and identify the red flags and the signs. And so on your papers, you guys may have something that talks about the different red flags to look for. And one of the things that it says is abuse can be difficult to identify, even for the victim. Learning about the different types of abusive behaviors is the first steps toward freedom. Below, you will find a list of flag behaviors. So one of the first red flags that I'd like to look at is controlling behavior. It's that control. And as the gentleman mentioned, it would take things like the car and do all of those things. So controlling behavior. The abuser gets angry when their partners are late. I remember I had a strict time clock to be on. And I used to find it to be hilarious because I'm like, I must be some kind of superwoman if I can drive the car, go to the grocery store, you know, pick up the laundry from the dry cleaners and have sex with somebody at the same time. Like, you know, every little thing, there was always that constant accusation of cheating and who you can talk to and how long you can talk to and where you can go. And all the decisions are made by the individual that you're in a relationship with.
Yes, I just wanted to, not to take you off your track, but just to say, particularly the ladies, whenever you have a partner that tells you when you are to have sex, you have to pay attention to that. And on those days where you really just don't feel like it and you say no, and it doesn't just go well, you need to pay attention to that. You really, really need to pay attention to that. Because abusers feel they own your body. That your body belongs to them. And they want it to be available to them when they are ready. And there also may be little concern about when you might have an interest in being sexual. But those things you need to really pay attention because they're subtle. They're subtle, and you know, depending on how high your own self-esteem and self-worth is, you might feel, oh, you know, well, he just wants me. You know, there was a time where I really couldn't even do the dishes without getting pushed up on. That used to annoy the hell out of me. You know, it's like, come on, help me do the dishes, and then I'll be free. But I'm not going to leave what I'm doing because now you want me to go. So, I mean, it took me a long time to know that that was abusive behavior. I just thought that that was an individual silliness.
Another red flag to look at is quick involvement. You know, I mean, yes, I'm pretty sure all of us, we know what people see in us, we know who we are, we know what our personalities are and all that stuff. And that's great when you want to be with another person, but when you want to be with them like that, like, can you get to know my middle name first? Like, can we have like a little bit more time? But usually people try to hurry up and put you in a relationship because then you won't know who you're really with. You know, by the time you find out that this person, because we can only pretend to be something that we're not but for so long. And so usually after a good like 90 days or so, the real person tends to come out. And so unfortunately, the relationship has already like started so fast. And that even when you try to say, you know what, wait, let's like slow down, let's like take a little, you know, pause here. No. And before you know it, once again, now you're stuck in something that you really don't want to be in. So just be mindful of those quick involvements. Again, yes, it's flattering when somebody's attracted to you, but when it's too much, when it's just overzealous, that's when we should look out for it. Well, one thing for sure is that even when we have disagreements, we can disagree with each other, but now when the argument becomes disrespectful and hurtful and just nasty, you shouldn't want to talk like that. And you know, and if that's how you really feel about a person, then that says a lot about you and the person that you're with. You know, I remember, you know, this person that I was with would try to say things like, "You're stupid." But the problem with that was that I'm not conceited by any means, but I'm very confident in who I am. So I was like, stupid? Like, who's stupid? Or you're fat, you're this, like all kinds of little things. I'm like, okay, now you're an idiot. You're just trying to say anything to hurt me. And if your objective is to hurt me, then you don't love me. Because we don't hurt who we love. I mean, and I'm pretty sure we all have, you know, iPhones and everything else. Like, I love this computer. And I'm not going to pick it up and slam it on the floor. By no means. I'll fall on the floor before I drop this laptop. But that's how, but see, when we care about something, when something is of value to us, we won't do that. And so, disagreements, arguments, you know what? I'm going to go somewhere and sit down and cool off. I'll talk to you later. You know, let's just come back when our heads are clear. But when a person just is saying things that's not cool, and you know when somebody's saying something to you that's not nice. You know, it's just like, okay, maybe once, all right, you weren't feeling all right, but I'm sorry, you call me out my name, then that just says a lot about you. And it's just difficult for me to kind of look at a person the same way after something like that has been established. So even for me, it was just for safety purposes and for your own boundaries. It's not really up to the other person to change. It's really up for us to say, these are my boundaries, and this is what I will and will not accept under any circumstances. And if this is the type of behavior that you're in, you know, that you like, then maybe you need to be with somebody else who shares that same type of sentiment. In addition to, a lot of times people using religion as a reason, but even some cultures feel like, you know, this is how it's supposed to be, this is how it has always been, and sadly, a lot of people will think that if they continue to pray, that's all it takes. And prayer is a wonderful thing. I mean, we should do it. But we also have to do other things as well. And so for individuals that I see, particularly that are Christian, that say things like that, but I also again go back to the Bible. Love is patient. Love is kind. Love is not jealous, proud, boastful, rude. Like, this is what it is, and this is what it says. And there's nowhere in the scriptures that talks about being abused. And if God is love, and if he's all these wonderful things, why on earth would we sit here and be subjected to this? And so even just from that little piece, maybe just helping an individual just understand, just to help them open their eyes. Because we can see stuff, but until a victim actually starts, that light bulb goes off, then you're gonna constantly feel that way. And sadly, unfortunately, most of the time as women, we will sacrifice our own happiness and our own sanity even, just to maintain that certain type of, you know, that image. And that's what kind of happened for me. I was ashamed to leave, because that would have meant that I would have had to expose my relationship. You know, we worked very hard to craft these, you know, this is a great person, and we're gonna get married, or we're already married. And so now I have to reveal to people that this whole image that I've been portraying to you has been a fraud. I've been fake. And so now, of course, people want to ask you things like, well, how come, and why this, and why that? So sometimes we don't want to subject ourselves to that. But, you know, the goal is to just help an individual understand that this is abusive. This is not safe.
You know, I was in a marriage a long time because I stayed because of my children. I thought that I was doing the noble thing. And, you know, then I literally had developed two lives. I had one life, and then I would split, go to New York, and I had a whole different life. But it took work to do that. And it didn't necessarily make me happy, but finally I learned. Spirit doesn't care what religion. Spirit is the essence of who we are. And that's where our joy center is, and where our guidance is, and all of those things that make us that rich, beautiful person that we can become. And it also depends on, what also impacts that is the culture. You know, because many cultures are male-dominated. Women submit to the man, right or wrong. And the norm, the male-dominant norm that existed under that culture, and how it impacts the family. And just because you might have come from Jamaica or Haiti or Trinidad or whoever, if that norm existed in that culture, and your parents were raised under that norm, they do not divert from that once they get here. As a matter of fact, they try hard to maintain their norm so that they never lose that part of their nationality and that pride that they have for the country from which they came.
People don't realize that domestic violence impacts you economically, the financial abuse, not only when somebody keeps you from money or anything like that, but will terrorize you so much that you can't concentrate. Like I said, I would drive to work in the morning, and no matter what I thought, I'm gonna wake up, I'm gonna have a great day, I'm gonna be wonderful today, and I would get in the car, and my name is spray painted all over a trailer on the highway. That was just to torture me. And so it impacted me at work. It got to a point where the constant phone calls at work, showing up at my job, showing up at school, showing up everywhere I went, trying to prevent me from taking online classes, like everything, because the better you become, the less you need of this person, or the less significant they feel. And even with the family of abusers, they create those monsters. So they know what they're dealing with. And I had the same situation. I wasn't hit, thank goodness, but it was just, Asia, why are you leaving my son? Why would you leave? Why would you do this to him? Couples fight all the time. And I'm like, well, first of all, couples don't fight all the time, and this wasn't a fight. I'm not fighting. I'm being assaulted. There's a big difference in that. And so we have to contend with our own issues in the family and friends and loved ones and all that. That's really the purpose of me doing this work, is that I wanted to help other victim survivors to not be ashamed, because initially I was too. Why be ashamed though when you think about it? You're not the rapist, you're not the abuser, you didn't manipulate the situation, you were a victim of a crime. You know what you've done to this person, and the sad part about it was I became a surrogate to his mother. You know, he was angry at her. You know, he didn't grow up getting affirmed. He wasn't loved the way that he should have been loved. And I remember one day when we were talking, and he reminded me about something, I reminded him of something, and he said, well, when I was 8 years old, my mother told me that she didn't give a blank about my feelings. And he said, if the womb that bore me didn't care about me, then why should you? And so that right there should have been a real red flag. That is something that we all have to use our voices in terms of legislation and making sure that laws are changed, because it shouldn't have to be a case where we have to constantly prove that we are victims. In fact, if there were any other cases, there's nothing in the law that says you're not a victim unless you're this, this, and this. assault is assault, stalking is stalking. Sexual assault is sexual assault. There's nothing that says, well, it's only a crime if you don't know the individual. And so, for me, I know how you feel in terms of trying to seek justice from the criminal justice system and being told or having my victimization be minimized. And so, no, I can't prove to you that I was raped, but this is what happened. No, you weren't there, but this is precisely what he said, this is what happened. And so sadly, I remember I wrote an article that's called, I am not the defendant. I should not have to sit here and go over and over and relive the nightmare only for you to tell me then that you can't help me. And that was what I had to say to the FBI. To you, I'm a case file. To me, I'm a closed casket. And so we have to, unfortunately, rely on our own tactics, and oftentimes, again, we don't like to tell our business or get other people involved, but we have to be very strategic and tell someone. The dynamics of abuse are the same. In fact, we do a lot of teen dating abuse workshops and curriculums talking about healthy relationships, because sadly now with the media and with so many other, misconceptions about relationships, we get so many mixed messages. And so we look at videos and we feel like we have to look a certain way. We have to behave a certain way. Or we look at certain movies and violence and all those things are depicted. And so when it comes to young adults, that's really a good time to have those conversations. Start when kids are like 8 and 9 years old. We don't have to go into all the details, but this is what happens when someone says something really subtle to you. This is what happens when someone tries to undermine you or break hurt your feelings constantly, or hitting you or pushing you. Let them know that this is not healthy before it gets to that point. But the conversation it's never too early to start those types of conversations, especially with children haven't witnessed healthy relationships in their homes. Well, you guys, any other questions that you may have, I'll be around, but also there's my information up there on the board, and there's also some information for how to contact me on your handouts as well, too. So thank you all so very much for sharing a lot of the things that you experienced, and I hope that we can all start to think of ways that we can begin to not just eradicate domestic violence in our own lives, but to start to build healthy communities, healthy families, and just anytime we see something that's not really cool, I'm not saying to stand up and be a superhero, but try to make sure that we begin to do all that we can to eradicate domestic violence. Thank you so much.
And please remember that you always have that available to you, services at Wise Women's Center downstairs on the 3rd level yellow area. When you have questions in your mind or you are really experiencing a real situation, even a question, it's a good time to get information. So just know that we are available to you, and please do not hesitate to seek help. Thank you for coming today.